Welcome to the Self-Storage Insight Podcast. Matt Markham joining me today. Matt, thanks for jumping on the podcast with me. We just got back from the Mid-Atlantic Regional Show for self-storage, and so we're going to touch on that a little bit today, and then we're going to talk about competing in business and the competition in self-storage. The competition's been changing, and the landscape is changing, and so a lot of people have a lot of questions around how can they compete with these other companies right now. So let's start off with the regional show that we were just at. What were some of your thoughts about heading down to Jersey?
When we got there, it was about exactly as I expected a self-storage show would be. Yeah. It was pretty exciting, about as exciting as a self-storage podcast. Yeah. So,
right.
But yeah, it was a good experience. It was nice to get some exposure there and to make our rounds.
Yeah, it's nice to kind of put faces with names. I mean, we work with a lot of the vendors that are there. We have a lot of relationships with different companies in self-storage, and so getting to connect with people is always nice. The speeches were meh. But it was a good time. So it's always nice to network a little bit, and then it's also nice to just make an appearance once in a while. But yeah, as far as one of the things that stood out to me, and then getting into more of the vendor side and some of the things that people were talking about, or a lot of the roundtables and discussions were around. There was a lot around how are businesses able to compete with REITs and with the larger managed facilities like Public and some of the stuff that they're doing. I mean, even the keynote speaker dropped a bombshell on everybody that was there. I was a little bit surprised by, all of these other third-party management companies are there.
That sponsored the event.
The event. Third-party management company had sponsored the keynote speaking portion of the event. Yeah. And then the keynote speaker got up and said that she went to Public and had this, has had crazy results with move-ins. Yeah. And so, for one, I was just kind of like, oh, wow, I'd be pretty upset if I sponsored an event for CC Storage sponsors, somebody to get up and speak, and then they say, hey, we went with StorEdge, right? So I was a little bit taken back by that. But again, I don't know if that's normal or not. So
we don't know if that's what they do.
Not really my style. I was a little shocked. But at the same time, there's so much conversation around, competing online, competing for new move-ins, trying to lease up facilities. The one nice thing around what we're hearing is that, new construction has slowed down. So supply is going to drop off a little bit, which is going to help a lot of facilities. If you've already built a facility, that's great for you, right? So if your facility is already ready to be begin leasing up, you're in a better position because there's not going to be as much construction coming behind you. It's getting harder to build. It's more expensive. It's more time consuming. Again, there's a lot of people are stopping building as they're working on this lease up phase. Lease up phases are taking longer. Yeah. So, the landscape is changing again, and it's going to continue to change. And in a couple of years, we'll be saying, oh my goodness, here comes all these new buildings, right? But for the moment, you're in a good spot if you have a facility. But the competition side of it that I wanted to kind of talk about is, a lot of these companies that we talk to every day when we're, demoing smaller independent operators, we work with mostly smaller operators, and a lot of their concerns that we're hearing are, a big facility just opened down the road, or
how do I compete?
How do I compete? How can I compete with SEO? They're using a third party's website and they're getting way more SEO than I'm getting. How can I compete with that side of it? And so that's kind of what we wanted to base the podcast around today, is just how can your business as an independent operator, how can you compete with the larger players, and are you competing on the right things, right? Yeah. So one of my other takeaways from the show was, as you're walking around and talking to the vendors and talking to the other management companies and your other software solutions, I heard the same pitches over and over and over again. And everybody's initial pitch is like, wow, well, we have the features that you need to implement to support your business, and we do it a little bit better than these guys. And everybody's offering a lot of the same things. However, with a self-storage facility, if you're trying to offer the same things as a public ran facility, you're losing. Yeah. Like, you're not winning that game. Totally not right now. Yeah. And in most cases, the owner strategy has to be completely different. And so some of the things I wanted to kind of dive into is making sure our businesses are competing for the right thing, and focusing on the things that we can control, and not focusing on the things that are outside of our control and getting hung up on that mindset of, I got to do what they're doing. I got to run that 2-month free move-in special. I have to give them 6 months with 50% off. The management strategies behind those are so different.
Yeah.
They don't work for everybody.
Yeah.
Right. So
they depend on turnover. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like they want people to cycle in and out, and that's how they raise their rates multiple times in a year. Luckily, they've been around long enough to the point where these independent owners are starting to see these tenants return. They're starting to come back.
Right.
Because, they moved in at a special rate or no rate at all, and then within 18 months they were, almost 10 times their initial rate.
They were getting burned. Yeah,
they can't.
Absolutely.
That's not sustainable for your average American. You know what I mean?
Right.
So they are starting to see some people come back, and that's where you might want to dial it in and kind of treat those tenants, a way to keep them at your facility. So.
Absolutely. And again, it's to me, it's evaluate your business and know how do you want your business to be perceived by your area, because again, storage is very localized.
Yeah.
How do you want your potential tenants, if you're trying to get return tenants, how do you want them to perceive your business? So have a good brand recognition, have good brand, have a good name in the community.
Good web presence too. Yeah.
But also, can you even sustain that management flow? Right, because a lot of people don't really think about, if I run a really big move-in special and I get these tenants that are just moving in because it's free or it's cheap, those tenants are going to move in. I have to now increase my rates. Like as a sustainable model, I can't give away my services give them away for free for 3 months and then not try to recoup the cost of that acquisition. So if it costs me $300 to acquire a customer, I have to recoup that $300 at some point for that to make sense.
Yeah, or it's not sustainable.
If the cost for my business is, somebody's renting a 10 by 10 and I'm making $35 off of, after cost, and my profit's $35 on that unit, there's 10 months now that I need to recoup that. It's going to take me 10 months to recoup that $300 investment. And most people are moving out by then. So that's not sustainable for your business. So that means I'm going to have to do rate increases. The problem that I see that so many people are buying into right now is match what the REITs are doing, revenue management, big move-in specials, dynamic pricing. Then when it comes around to it, they can't manage that. They're not set up to manage it. They may have one employee, they may have no employees, and it's a self-owned and operated facility. And all of a sudden they're like, oh my goodness, my competition is offering these crazy low rates. I have to match that. I can't get anybody to move in online. They get those customers, they jack those rates up, those customers leave, but they don't know how to market to refill the unit, right? So understand the management flow that goes into this strategy that these bigger operators are using is not sustainable for independent operators. It's just not. And so the biggest thing that I always like to come back to in business in general, and again, we're a software business and we're building software and we're competing in other areas and with other things. But as a whole, one of the statements I try to run our business by is we obsess over our customers and make sure that we're providing a great experience for our customers. And we know what our competitors are doing, but I don't spend a lot of time worrying about what everybody else is doing in the space. I want to know what thing can we compete on? And then how can we give our customers the best experience? Yeah. Because if my customers are happy and they love my business, I'm going to succeed. It doesn't matter if they get a move-in special down the road, they're going to come back. It doesn't matter if somebody beats my rates, they're going to come back because they're going to get burned by these strategies. And just to your point, that's starting to happen already.
Oh yeah.
So
I'm seeing it every day.
One of my cautions there is hey, maybe don't immediately buy into all of this noise that is, hundreds of dollars in acquiring a customer really quickly online. That's really not the ideal customer for your business.
Yeah. I mean, you don't have the resources that they have available to sustain that.
For sure.
You know what I mean? So the ones of you that held out and, you did kind of hold on and sustain, that are starting to see these tenants return from these big box companies, well done. Now capitalize on what you can do to keep them, to keep it scaling your business.
Right.
Because we did talk, I mean, it sounds kind of contradictory, but we did say, and one of our emails is 100% occupancy a win or complacency. So there's a fine line there. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
You do need some turnover. That's how you scale your business. If you just stay stagnant, you don't scale. And you're supposed to build a business like you want to sell it, even if you don't plan to sell it.
Right. But and to that point too, what's your goal? What's your long-term goal?
Yeah.
Right. So a lot of the people that you feel like you're competing with right now are trying to sell their facility, or they're going to lease up really fast. It's going to look really good on their pro forma when they show the banks they hit 85% occupancy and they stabilize the facility, and now they can sell it. And they are going to sell it with a bunch of tenants that are upset and are getting rate increases. And,
Yep.
and so, yeah, is my business, is it a short-term goal and I just want to lease up and sell it? That's probably the right strategy for you.
Yeah.
If your business this is a retirement nest egg and something that I'm going to hold on to and I'm going to try to capitalize for a long time, you want to run your business based on your goals and making sure that you're building a business that you can even be proud of and that you want to work at, right?
Yeah.
So just because your competitors are doing something, I always want to just don't focus too much on that. Talk to your customers. Like if you're spending all of your time checking out all of the other facilities in your area to see what move-in specials they're running, and you haven't talked to the customers that moved in, you're doing it wrong.
Yeah.
Like you need to be communicating with your customers and finding out like, hey, why'd you choose us? What's some areas where we can dial this in, instead of just focusing on, oh my goodness, we can't compete.
Yeah.
We can't compete on this level, right?
Yeah. One of our customers, because you can add custom fields on the lease template, and one of our customers, one of their, they only have 3, but one of theirs is, how'd you hear about us? That's a great way to gather some information, to kind of figure out the best marketing strategy in the future. So I thought that was pretty cool. But
yeah, absolutely. Yes. Survey your customers.
Yeah.
I even go the other direction too and say like, can you dive into the metrics behind your facility and see like, you have customers that have been there for a long time. What do you think's keeping them there? Right? How are you managing your business? Because to your point too, you said like, is 100% occupancy the goal, or is it complacency? And what percentage are we trying to hit there?
Yeah.
Some owners, that is the goal.
Yeah.
Right.
And so they're proud of that.
And they're proud of that. And I mean, I've talked to people and they're like, I have 400 units and we've been 100% occupied for the last 10 years and they love it.
Yeah.
And you know what? They're proud. They are proud to talk to me and say, I haven't done a rate increase in 24 months. I think it's crazy because costs have gone up to not do rate increases. However, that's what they want to do.
Yeah.
And they're making money, right?
Yeah, they stabilized years ago.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it is passive income.
And so, for me to say, oh, everybody should run their business this way is wrong. Run your business in a way that you can be proud of, for one, that your team, if you have employees, that they can be proud of. Like nobody wants to work for a facility where they get angry phone calls all of the time and everybody's always frustrated and there's animosity towards the business. Like that's a toxic environment. And so again, just make sure that we're competing for the right things, and trying to build the business that we want to build.
Yep.
So know your short-term goal, know your long-term goal. What are you trying to do? And also look at what everybody else is doing and say, can I manage this? And if you can't, find something that you can do, because there's not one way to run these businesses.
Nope. Yeah. Every one of them is unique. But, I mean, if you are leaning towards the whole property management thing, we were at the show and, on the way back, we looked up how many facilities there were nationwide. We know that the average number there, but there's about 53,000 or so storage facilities nationwide.
Yeah.
Independently owned, yeah. And we were making our rounds, and there was a couple software companies and gate companies, but we did encounter about 57,000 property management companies. Third-party management companies. So they are out there. There's plenty.
No, there is more. And again, that is healthy competition.
Yeah.
Right. So the one thing that I love about it is, if you go back in storage 5 years and it was like there were 3 software choices and none of them were that great. There were a couple of gate options. There were a couple of third-party management companies. The more people that enter the space, that creates better experiences for people, right? There's now choices.
More options.
Everybody has to put more development resources. If we're just going to say like for software, for example, everybody has to put more development resources towards their software because there's more entries, right? And so that competition is healthy. That drives better features. That drives better customer service. That drives a better experience for the user. So that's healthy competition. What's not healthy competition is a bunch of people pour into a space and then they just lower their rates to try to beat their competitors. Like the race to the bottom is a real problem. And so there's a difference between competing on value and competing on price. Yeah. And what are you trying to compete on? And if you're just trying to compete on your move-in specials, you're screwed.
Oh yeah.
Because I promise you somebody out there has deeper pockets than you, and they're probably in your area.
Big box can afford to drop their rate to nothing for a very long time.
Yeah.
And that's not sustainable for an independent owner. Right. So you can't compete at that level. So find ways to improve the current experience. And there are additional revenue streams. They're limited in this industry, but making our rounds, there are smart locks and there's bougie things that tenants might want, you know what I mean? So you might be able to appeal to a specific type of tenant, whereas you still need to support the others that don't quite have an interest in
Yeah,
those
like
things.
we were talking to Storage Defender
Yeah.
and, the in-unit motion detectors, smoke alarm stuff. Like, so, people are charging more money for that. And again, we talked to some operators that are using it and they're getting more rentals in those units than their other units. So there are little things out there where you can, find things. And if that's how you want to run your business and you want to run a first-class facility and you want to promote security and all these things, like you can differentiate.
Yeah.
You don't just have to offer a good move-in rate, and then one of the other sides that I always look at it too is like, from a cash flow perspective, if you can't cash flow the crazy move-in specials and that sort of thing, if that's what you're trying to compete in, it hurts your business in other ways as well. Because for one, you're going to spend more money in technology and on revenue management and in a more advanced software maybe even than you need, which it hurts your NOI. Like all of a sudden, more of your operating expenses are going towards these other things, trying to compete on this. And whenever you don't have the management to run it, those things don't run it for you. Like it's automated, but it's not. Like it still takes work.
Yeah.
And so trying to fully automate your facility and say, I don't ever need to be there, and I'm going to implement all of these things to run my business for me. That's not a good strategy either, right? Like, so find a balance. If I'm talking to like an independent owner, find your balance. Like, what are you trying to do with your facility? What's your goals? And then what can you manage? And work with companies that support that goal. Yeah. Right. Like, a big part as well is there are a lot of options out there. So find the right partners. A business isn't usually built by one person doing really good things. It's built by a team. And with storage, they're usually smaller teams, but you are partnering with gate companies. You are partnering with software. You are partnering with tenant insurance. Yeah. And so
make sure it
lines up with what you want.
Yeah, partner with somebody.
Right. Absolutely.
We look at our customers as partners because we listen to them. We scale based off their needs and the feedback we get from them. Make sure that you are partnering with somebody and not just being sold by somebody.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. And I mean, we've talked to operators, and again, we work with protection companies, and so we've partnered with Safe Lease and with Storage Shield, and so we have other companies that we've partnered with. However, we still do get feedback from our customers that say, I don't want you guys to fully integrate because we don't want to have to force protection plans on our customers. We love that you give us the option to add it or not add it, and we leave that up to our customer. And so, depending on what software you choose, that may be a requirement. So those are some things to make sure that you're okay with before you partner with a company. Like, does this align with my goals? Yeah. I don't, from facility operators, they don't want to get bad reviews.
Yeah, because that all comes down the review. I mean, that's a problem. Like if things are forced on you, if you're cool with that, fine. But think of all the different angles there, because if something's forced, it's also forced on your tenants. And if the tenants have an issue, they're not going to be upset with us. They're not going to be upset with a protection company or a gate company. They're going to be upset with you as the owner. And people like to make things public nowadays, especially. Yeah, they're going to leave a review.
Everybody has a voice, unfortunately.
Can't hide that. So
but no, absolutely. So. Again, and I'm not even saying in some facilities that's not a bad thing. Like there are markets where you should require tenant protection. There are markets where you shouldn't. And so understand your business and what do you want to do, and then make sure that you're partnering with companies that are going to help you compete towards that goal. Yeah. Right. So again, it is an exciting time in self-storage. Like it's harder to lease up. It's more competitive. That's not a bad thing. Like the competition is good, and it can be really healthy. It also can be toxic. So just make sure you're focusing on the right things. So a lot of times too, when I would bring somebody on the podcast just to talk about, an owner operator, how they run their facility, the first question I always like to ask people is like, what do you do that sets you apart? And then I would kind of build the podcast questions and stuff off of, what they did. Most of them said the same things, right? Like they're focusing on, these 2 or 3 areas or whatever. But if you don't know what sets your business apart, you really don't know where to start, right? So like a company that tries to appeal to everybody usually doesn't resonate with anybody, right? So find your niche, find the things that you can compete on, and then dial in your business to focus on those areas. And that'll really help you a lot. And, and don't feel overwhelmed when somebody moves in down the street. Like it's a strategy. Business is war, man. Like you got to figure out a way to win. And so, competing. But that was kind of one of my takeaways from the show was just, the level of competition amongst vendors is rising, but amongst storage facilities for sure, they're struggling to figure out ways to lease up. They're struggling to figure out how to compete with these bigger companies. And
we got to meet with some of our competitors, and there was great conversation there. Yeah. And what's kind of cool about it is there were some software companies that just were I mean, they haven't really put any resources, and they haven't done much with their software. They just sustained. They're starting to come out with some different programs now because of the the competition out there, us included. So
competition drives excellence. Yeah. And so it's definitely not a bad thing.
Their products now, which that's great.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that helps everybody.
For everybody.
Right. For sure.
So there needs to be other options.
Absolutely. So. Yeah. And I mean, it's one of those things too, where when you're running your business, I don't want every customer.
No.
There are customers that come across our desks and hey, we don't want to work with this company. And we say, hey, we're not a good fit. We don't align with the way you want to run your business or
if you
personality.
Hear that, that's our way of saying we don't want to work with you.
So the no contracts protects us as well as them.
Yeah.
I think that the competition is great right now. It is getting more and more competitive, but make sure you're finding the areas that you want to compete and that you're competing for the right things as you run your business. That was kind of one of my bigger takeaways from it. So, awesome. Anything else that you any other thoughts around that, or anything you want to add to the?
No, I mean that's pretty much covered everything we discussed beforehand. So yeah.
Awesome. Well, if you're listening to the podcast, thank you so much for your support. I look forward to continuing the podcast and sharing some different insights for running your business as well as self-storage. And as always, have a great day out there.
Yep. Take care.
Thank you guys so much for listening and tuning into the podcast. We hope you enjoyed this episode. This episode was brought to you by CC Storage. CC Storage is a property management software that can be utilized by your business at no cost to you. Pass the fees for credit card processing onto your tenants, increase your business's revenue, no software fees, no contracts, no per unit costs, no surprises. So hope you check out CC Storage as the sponsor of our podcast, and we hope you tune in to the next episode. Thank you.